Hello everyone, it's Scott, and today we got our first large look at Phyrexia, all will be one, and rather than try to cram all 50 cards they showed us today into one video, I've broken it down into three parts. The first one's going to look at lands, the instants and sorceries, and the one Planeswalker we got today. Our second video will look at the artifacts of the set, and our third, all the creatures that we saw from today's releases. So before we jump in though, thanks again to Caffeinated Gamers for sponsoring our video and our content. And remember to like and subscribe so you can see further videos like this one. Let's get started. Alright, so the first one we got from Phyrexia All Will Be One is the Phyrexian dual lands that we saw on Mirrodin. We're getting them again, so we've got Dark Slick Shores, which is our blue and black, and we got Copperline Gorge, which is our red and green, and Razor Verge Thicket, which is our green and white, and then Sea Chrome Coast, which is our white and our blue, and we got Black Cleave Cliffs, which is our black and red land. So what we're getting here is lands that if you have fewer than 2 lands in play, they come into play untapped. If you have more than 2 lands in play, when you play them, they will come into play tapped. So these are very similar to the lands that we saw the last time we were on Dominaria, and so they'll be very useful, but they're not quite as good as some of the other lands that we've seen recently. We also got these 2 lands from Phyrexia All Will Be One, which is the Seed Core and the Monumental Facade. So the Seed Core is a sphere just like the Monumental Facade is. It gives you colorless mana, and you can also tap it for 1 mana of any color, but you can only spend that mana to cast a Phyrexian creature spell. And then it has Corrupted as well, where target 1/1 creature gets +2/+1 until end of turn, and you can only activate if an opponent has 3 or more poison counters. So with the Corrupted ability, what you're gonna see is every time we talk about Corrupted in terms of cards, the opponent has to have 3 poison counters or that Corrupted ability to be in effect. All right, so the Monumental Facade. The Monumental Facade enters the battlefield with 2 oil counters on it. Again, it taps for colorless mana, and you can remove an oil counter from the Monumental Facade and put an oil counter on target artifact or creature you control, activate only as a sorcery. And we'll see more of the oil counter stuff later as we continue to go through creatures. And the ability of the Monumental Facade to move an oil counter could be valuable in the game, because some of the cards that have oil counters can actually draw cards. So having the ability to add oil counter to a creature is very useful. Alright, so let's look at our instants and sorceries. So the first one we got is Black Sun Zenith, and this is for X and a black mana. It's an instant where up to 1 target creature gets -X until the end of the turn, and if X is 5 or more, return a creature card with mana value X or less from your graveyard to the battlefield tap. So very powerful spell here. The ability to bring something back late in the game. If you cast this, when you have that 6 lands on the board, very, very powerful. And early in the game, you can, use it to kill, any creature your opponent has. But the nice thing about it, it does give you that flexibility. If you hold on to it until later, then you can go ahead and bring a creature back from the graveyard, which can be very, very powerful and helpful to black. So this is certainly a sideboard card in black decks, but we'll see if it gets main decked at all. White Sun's Twilight is X and 2 white mana, where this is a sorcery and you gain X life and create X/1/1 colorless Phyrexian Might artifact creature tokens with Toxic 1, and this creature cannot block. If, again, X is 5 or more, destroy all other creatures. So very powerful spell. Again, just like Black Sun's Twilight, early in the game, you feel like you need some blockers, you can play it for 4 or 5 mana, create a few creatures that can't block, but can go ahead and put toxic counters on your opponent, those poison counters, and you can gain a little bit of life. And then late in the game, you can go ahead and create 5 Phyrexia Mites or more and destroy all other creatures on the board, which basically is a great board wipe where you actually get something behind it, which is a very powerful ability. So definitely in control decks, you're gonna see this card there because it's a powerful ability. And then we also got Green Sun's Twilight. Again, this is X and a green mana for a sorcery, and you get to reveal the top X+1 cards of your library, choose a creature card and or a land card from among them, put those cards into your hand and the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order. So if you use it for low mana, you get a creature card and you get a land. And then if X is 5 or more, instead put the chosen cards on the battlefield or into your hand and the rest in the bottom of your library into random order. So if you can pay 6, you get to put the creature on the field and put the land on the field that you're going to pull. So very, very powerful green ability to get you a card onto the field. Again, with all the Twilights that we've seen so far, the big issue with them is that you've got to have a lot of mana to use them and get that 5 ability at using 5 mana ability. So that's the limitation on them. Otherwise, they're very good cards. They're very useful in Standard. Alright, so we got 2 other instants today: Experimental Augury and Sheoldred's Edict. Let's start with Experimental Augury. For colorless and a blue mana, you get an instant. You get the top 3 cards of your library, put one of them into your hand and the rest on the bottom of your library in any order, and then proliferate. So proliferate is the ability to add an additional counter to everything that has a counter on it of any kind. So this is a really powerful ability, and I think we're going to definitely see this in any kind of deck that counters matter. So it could be oil counters, it could be +1/+1 counters, or any kind of counters that you can think of that might be in play. It would also give an additional loyalty to all your Planeswalkers. So certainly in a Planeswalker deck, you're going to see this. But I expect to see a good bit of this card played in Standard. Alright, in Sheoldred's Edict, for 1 and a black mana, you get an instant. Each opponent either sacrifices a non-token creature, each opponent sacrifices a creature token, or each opponent sacrifices a Planeswalker. So Sheoldred's Edict is going to be played, and you're going to see 4 of them in your opponent's decks. So black just got yet another removal spell, and this one's really good because you can actually kill a Planeswalker with it, where all of the other 2-cost instant removal cards in black that kill a creature, they only do that. They only kill a creature, and they don't kill a Planeswalker. So Sheoldred's Edict is going to see play. You're going to see probably 2, maybe 3 copies main deck, and certainly having additional ones in the sideboard, because we did get 10 Planeswalkers in this set. So you're going to want an ability to kill Planeswalkers, and Sheoldred's Edict is a great way to do that. Definitely a card to be on the lookout for. Alright, next we have some enchantments. So we've got, I'm going to mispronounce this, Scribble's Hive for a colorless and a white mana. It's an enchantment. At the beginning of your upkeep, you lose 1 life and create a 1/1 colorless Phyrexia Bite artifact creature token with Toxic 1, and this creature cannot block. And if you have the Corrupted ability activated, as long as an opponent has 3 or more poison counters, creatures you control with Toxic have lifelink. So that's a very powerful ability. Certainly any deck that is focused on creature tokens, this is a great card in it, because every time at the beginning of your upkeep, you're going to create one. Once you get to the point where your opponent has 3 or more poison counters, then all of these Phyrexia Mites that have been created, they're going to then not only give a poison counter, but also gain you life in that. So this is a great card for anybody who's looking to do kind of a tokens-based deck in Standard. It's going to be definitely a card I would be on the lookout for, because it only costs 2 mana and it creates a creature every single turn, and that's really powerful. And next we have Goliath Hatchery. For 4 colorless mana and 2 green, you get an enchantment. And when Goliath's Hatchery enters the battlefield, create 2 3/3 green Phyrexian beast creature tokens with Toxic 1. And then again, it has the corrupted ability as well. At the beginning of your upkeep, if an opponent has 3 or more poison counters, choose a creature you control, then draw a card equal to its total toxic value. So there are some of the, obviously we've got cards that have toxic of 1, but if you get to activate the corrupted ability on this, then you're going to be able to draw potentially 2-3 cards depending on the toxic value of the creature that we're talking about. So both of these cards I think are playable. The Hive is going to see much more play than the Hatchery because 6 mana is a lot for a card, but you do get 2 3/3 creatures out of it, and you get that corrupted ability that's going to be a card draw engine for you in the mid to late game. So maybe one of in some green decks, but again, right now, green is not the most powerful color. We're not seeing a lot of green decks right now. All right, and that brings us to Ossification, which is a colorless mana and a white. You get an enchantment that's an aura and enchant basic land you control. And then when Ossification enters the battlefield, exile target creature or planeswalker an opponent controls until Ossification leaves the battlefield. This is definitely going to see play in white decks. The fact that you put it on a land is really important because a lot of times, you're looking at, okay, I can kill an enchantment. Well, you can do that still, but it's harder to kill a land than it is pretty much anything else in the game. So this is going to, be pretty well protected against being eliminated. Not only it's an aura in the form of the enchantment, but it also, again, then is attached to that land rather than something else that is a little bit easier to deal with. All right, the next one we have is Phyrexian Arena. And this is a reprint. For a colorless and 2 black mana, you get an enchantment that at the beginning of your upkeep, you draw a card and you lose a life. This will definitely be seen play in black decks that want card draw. The loss of a life, is just a common cost to playing black in a lot of cases. And with the life gain that black has right now with things like Sheoldred, and Phyrexian Fleshgorger, there's ways for black to gain any life it loses back. So I think we'll see a lot of Phyrexian Arena in standard because it's just a great card to keep those cards coming into your hand. And I can really see this paired very efficiently with Teferi from the Brothers War, because every time you draw a card, he gains an extra loyalty, which will push him towards his ultimate much, much faster. All right, and the last thing we have is our Planeswalker of the day, Jace, the Perfected Mind. For 2 colorless, blue, and a Phyrexian mana, you get a legendary Planeswalker Jace. Okay, it has the completed component as well. You can pay 2 life rather than paying the additional blue mana, but if you do, you lose 2 of the loyalty counters off of Jace. So I think we'll probably see Jace played for 4 mana, maybe in a pinch for 3. His +1 until the end of turn, up to 1 target creature gets -3, -0. So basically what you're going to do is really take their best creature, make it so it can't do a whole lot of damage, which is a powerful ability to help protect Jace from an attacker. For -2, target player mills 3 cards, and if a graveyard has 20 or more cards in it, you draw 3 cards, otherwise you draw a card. So -2, you draw a card, mill 3 cards, and then if you get to 20, then you get that powerful ability of drawing 3. And then for -X, target player mills 3 times X cards. So if you played Jace on 4, you could potentially mill your opponent for 15 cards, which is pretty powerful when you think about it. So Jace, I think we're going to see some play in Jace. Just kind of figure out what the right kind of deck is. Right now, we really don't have a mill deck, but we do have some graveyard decks that might work really well with Jace's abilities. You -2, you draw a card, you send 3 cards to the graveyard, and that helps you out with that as well. So Jace is our I believe we're up to our ninth Planeswalker that we've seen so far, so we've got just one more coming that we'll hopefully see in the next day or so. Alright, so that's it for this video, where we looked at the instant sorceries, lands, enchantments, and the only Planeswalker. Thanks for staying to the end of the video. Hope you liked it, and we'll be back with a look at the artifacts from today in a separate video, and also the creatures. And again, thanks to Caffeinate Gamers for sponsoring our video, and I'll see you in the next video.